Hello everyone, welcome to this YouTube special cast. It is a replay given to me by friend and co-caster Nathanias against some guy named Lamb and Rice, and I don't know, I actually don't know who that is, although it does sound familiar. Have you played in Qualifier? Did I face you when you were like really low on MMR? I don't know, but we know that it is a TVZ, and we know that in the top left, it is the one and only Nathanias. In the bottom right is the blue Zerg. It is lamb and rice, which is delicious. And I believe his clan tag usually has literally a lamb and some rice, perhaps. So, why did I get this replay, you may ask? Well, it's not because, you know, I'm generally a fan of Nathanias or his crazy antics on stream and his play style. It's not that he begged me to cast the game because he did something super cool. But it is because apparently this was super cool. In fact, I actually flipped the script right there. I kind of had to, not exactly beg, but I had to ask him to please send me that replay as he tweeted about a very long, spoiler alert, very long game that ended in a very clutch fashion. Now, fortunately for you guys and me, I don't actually know what the ending was. I don't remember what the ending was. So this twist ending, whatever it was, whatever this reason the replay was special, is going to be shock. Shock and all, okay? And I am looking forward to it because we all know that Nathanias has a bit of a weird style. This is one of his latter games. I think it happened on stream, so you could even potentially go back and actually check to see his reaction to this, if I'm not mistaken. It would have been maybe June 30th or the 30th or something along those lines, June 26th. I don't know. Good luck finding that if you do find it. But we have the replay here right now, and I'm looking forward to seeing something really cool happen. It is going to be a long one, so, you know, get your popcorn, you fill your drink. It's going to be a bit of a doozy. So first of all, Marine coming out here. Second Marine coming out, actually, just consistent Marine production, bit of an odd opener already for the Zerg to have to deal with. Now, this actually isn't, oh, is this how you do it? No, okay, I was gonna say, I'm fairly certain this actually isn't, like, a blind spot. It's easy to make the mistake, though, because it certainly looks like it should be, but actually, the Overlord that can see the natural is sometimes put over here. It sucks. Playing Zerg, I always just automatically go down to here, and I'm like, wait a second, that Marine's attacking me. And, otherwise, well, lose the Overlord regardless, but as a Terran, I can usually get it there. So it looks like he wasn't quite certain that Overlord died. That's kind of funny. He uses the command center to figure it out. I did follow up that barracks double gas. We now have the factory on the way, kind of making up for time for being that gasless expand. But ooh, look at this. Lamb and rice. While the Overlord did die, it did get to see what type of opening it was. Slightly faster command center, maybe reading into that, but also seeing that it is a bunker, maybe hoping that he can break someone who is being laughably greedy behind this. You know, if Nathanias had only gone for one gas, perhaps, or he'd taken off of gas after 100, perhaps he's going into a third command center and trying to be super greedy behind the wall. That's actually not the case. We do have a starport also coming down, so I'm not exactly sure if the Roach Warren will be effective or not. That was the second Roach Warren that was accidentally built. There it is. I'm not sure about this one, you know? Nathanias, there's one thing going for him, it's usually his ability to turtle, and you do see here that he does not have that factory swapping over to reactor, as, well, I didn't actually see very much. The SCV scout got in, got out, didn't even go back to check to see if a third base was down, so this isn't a reaction. It is him just actually turtling here. Also keeping that as much in the dark as possible with the Marines scouting for what is sometimes that second Overlord that is here. But this is not just important for that second scouts because the first one died. It's also important to give that high ground vision to what could potentially be Ravagers. But because it's a tank first with a decent amount of Marines, you know, they won't have stim, but that's a decent amount of damage output with a bunker. I just don't feel like this is going to be worth it. And well, I mean, if this utterly fails, oh look, there's a tag, there's a spray. If this utterly fails, Lamb and Rice just interrupted what could have been much smoother macro, you know? I did just hear a scan go down, and it is on the main base. Sees the lair. Actually recently just started, but more importantly sees the Roach Warren already done. Vikings here to take care of that Overlord, so no high ground vision achieved. I believe if there was not something there, the command center could have been in trouble, but seems like it's gonna be okay. That tank providing the defense back in the natural, and like 10 Marines here should be enough. If the body actually goes down, Nathanias a little bit slow to that repair, but it doesn't matter. It's still a huge, or well, the opposite of huge, it's a tiny, tiny choke to go through for those roaches, and that tank just got 10 times more effective alongside those Marines, and that is a bit of a waste right there. Now, Nathanias, with this opener, there's some things that he doesn't, you know, there's a reason this isn't the typical opener. Like, why doesn't everyone do this if it's so safe? It does kind of cut into other things. It cuts into the pressure you can put on the opponent as well. So Lamb and Rice kind of cut his drones for a little while there, got the Roach Warren, got 10 roaches, is now fully back into droning as there's no Hellions to even try to bother him. There hasn't really been a need, I guess, to build extra queens. He's not too worried about creep spread, which I don't know if that's actually a good thing, but maybe that is a decision he makes against Nathanias. If you're up against Nathanias, he's actually playing an account that you recognize, you kind of figure what you're in for. And it looks like he knows perhaps about battlecruisers. That's kind of Nathanias' thing, and they are on the way. I do believe Nathanias has a Hellion opener, not just this safety tank opener. So Lamb and Rice might have been hoping to find Hellions with the roaches, didn't, but still might be very well aware that the follow-up is a battlecruiser. We do have that Spire on the way, which seems to just be the option against battlecruiser. Getting Corruptor is actually able to float around across some of the dead space is a little bit better than just queens or spore crawlers. But it also could be that he thinks Nathanias is going to go mech and is hoping to gain some control. We'll see what his immediate reaction is to those battlecruisers, because, I mean, the Spire's good. Is it going to be timed out correctly? Yeah, it looks like it. Usually the initial defense, as we saw a couple of drones go down to 2 Hellions, a bit surprising. The initial defense is queen-based, with maybe a spore crawler to help out. In this case, the Spire is pretty quick, so we'll see how this goes down. There are at least a couple extra queens. No, actually just 1 for each hatchery still. Not a lot of creep spread, but does have 1 creep tumor apiece going forward here, and with really no activity out on the map, I guess that makes sense. Finally, I do have some Hellions to help out, though, and that might be changing soon. The mutas will take control of the ground, right? They're in the sky, but they'll take control of the ground, but I'm actually not sure about them taking control of the air up against a battlecruiser. Battlecruiser is very tanky beasts, and mutas don't do a lot of damage. They're not the type of unit that's supposed to take down a gigantic single unit. They actually don't take out any units. They're not an attack unit, right? They're totally harassment based. But we'll see how this goes. This is going to keep Nathanias back at home, perhaps. If the muta count really grows, help to keep his battlecruisers back at home. Potentially, we do finally have armories on the way, and we already have missile turrets. In fact, getting a high-sec auto-tracking, something that I think Nate's actually a big fan of. And I can't really disagree for how, like, the extra range on a missile turret and a planetary. The missile turret in this regard is very effective. It is basically giving more damage, more DPS to the missile turret. Obviously only to an extent, but still, it's pretty big. And if you get building armor on top of it this early, it's just like the meter's never going to take down missile turrets ever. Or structures with building armor. But that might be pushed off a little ways. So the mutas, obviously, we're seeing. We already have missile turrets, having another one placed down. Even a couple of Marines to help out. Battlecruiser is going to keep that teleport in for an escape. Just kind of walking across the map. Nathanias did wait for that Yamato, so he's going to have one and maybe pop this queen or not. Maybe too late to do so now that he's taking this much damage. Actually, this is really, really risky for him to do, but oh my god, it actually worked. A queen, a spore, and that many mutas attacking that. Yeah, that did take a lot of damage. It was very risky from the do. But Nathanias, behind this, not just defending against those mutas, keeping them preoccupied too with that little bit of harassment, is also going into more battlecruisers because, of course, also upgrading them, especially effective on that armor. They're already tanky units with a lot of health. You add on that armor and, you know, things like Marines will do any damage to it. Hydralisks really start to look quite lame. Again, muta is not really usually the unit that you want. You do have the Zerg player going into a Carapace upgrade, which will make sense later, I think, more so for Corruptors. But this is actually what I would like to see. The Infestation Pit has been thrown down. Hive should be started soon. But the Infestors with Energy and Neural Parasite can be an effective way of dealing with the Battlecruisers. Not just for the usual ways that we think of Neural Parasite, taking a unit out of the fight, or putting a unit against your opponent, right? You're adding on to your supply. Those are all great things, but the added benefit, the real benefit really of dealing with battlecruisers with these things is that you can just make sure that you kill the damn things. When they start coming over as we saw Nathanias do, and then teleport out so they get basically free damage if they do it sneaky enough. That just adds up over time. You know, initially you don't care because nothing's really happening. You're on 80 drones, 5 bases, who cares? But after a couple different runs-bys of increasingly large numbers of battlecruisers starting to kill your technology, starting to clear hatcheries, killing all your drones, and then they just escape? Oh, it's so annoying. So annoying. No parasite will make it so that they can't escape. Now, the infestor might die, and that's the tricky part. If the battlecruiser, the Terran player, sees the infestors on the way, scans them, sees them, whatever, and gets the Yamato lined up, the Yamato still actually goes out and does one-shot infestors. So you might get the neural parasite, but then immediately lose the infestor doing the neural parasite. But if things go perfectly for the Zerg player, if they can get a burrow going on, or just get sneaky enough, or just the, something like that, then they can teleport the battlecruiser before, the Terran player can respond. So maybe you lose the infestor, but then you also do grab the battlecruiser, which is a better trade for the Zerg, 1-to-1. So that's the perfect situation, but it doesn't really go perfectly, does it? Nathanias is coming in here with some double-pronged harassment. The battlecruisers can't take a lot of beating before they have to teleport out, which he's probably banking on to micro with, but too busy over here. Neural Parasite's not done, so just Fungal's going down, but Fungal's still effective. Spore Crawler's actually doing enough damage, and oh man, Infestarians, of course, are doing a ton of damage. The added extra benefit of Infestor is one of the main concerns, actually, of the Infestor right now in this matchup and versus Protoss, is the infested Terran being so damn strong. Definitely a good option against battlecruisers as well. So we got 2 battlecruisers down. That was at the cost of 1 hatchery and maybe a handful of drones, but Landon Rice at one point had built like 28 extra drones. He's been up to 100 for a little while here. He just needs the hatcheries to mine from, and he is rebuilding the one on the natural as well as one at the 5th, 6th, actually. That very minor creep spread that started a long time ago has actually gone kind of far out. Nathanias isn't worried about dealing with creep spread because his army doesn't really get hurt by creep spread, and it's not, the banelings aren't rolling faster at his marines, but it is still something that you have to be concerned about. I don't think you should ignore it for either party, even though it's a bit less of a dramatic cause and effects as it is maybe versus bio. It still is useful for the Zerg, right? They can start planting down spore crawlers and spine crawlers, kind of draw a line in the sand if they really get the opportunity. And it does give them vision, so they can start catching Hellion and run bys a bit faster. And battlecruisers as well. But that's what Nathanias is doing. He's not dealing with the creep spread with a bunch of Hellions or Cyclones, something like that. And now it'd be a little too late to even start trying, probably. But he is just running Hellions in and trying to get the battlecruisers to do as much damage as possible before they have to teleport out. Now, Nathanias has lost 2 battlecruisers, but still producing 3 at a time, kind of from the get-go. This has been a very passive game overall. It means that his count really isn't that bad. Looks like he's completed all of those upgrades, including that building armor, which is why we see used to be a different upgrade. Now just combined with the building armor. See the bunker looking quite crazy. Lane's trying to do something, but mostly just distract the air army. Battlecruisers coming on the right side. Scanning ahead, cleaning up that creep, but also looking for the infestation. He's going to go for the Yamato. And he gets them preemptively definitely far faster than the neural parasites happened. Nathanias very much so looking for that, and Lamb and Rice kind of getting tricked, He's like, yes, I have a plan, I have a trick, and then he gets tricked by the trickster. But that's just, it's just the way that you gotta actually play the game here. The infestors are probably the best option unless you can get a good max out initially and try and conquer the battlecruiser player, the mech player, before they reach a certain point. That is obviously the ideal way to do it. And Nathanias was up against Sue. I can almost guarantee that Sue has already kind of bopped him down here. But against anyone of his skill level, and even like hundreds of MMR above, with his weird playstyle, his turtly playstyle, and his knowledge of how to abuse the playstyle, it actually is super frustrating to deal with. And the Zerg players, whenever they take damage early on, they know that they're in a world of trouble. But here we have those neural parasites being very effective, actually taking out about half or more than half of the battlecruisers and using them against Nathanias' own, getting some of those Yamatos off. He doesn't actually use a teleport though, so... Oh well, actually the teleport was still on cooldown for a lot of these. But there's actually no option to kill them here. The Corruptors are somewhere else. The neural parasites aren't looking nearly as strong anymore. A bit of a waste of an attack there. There he uses the teleports finally. Oh, that's a very smart idea. Bring the battlecruisers to your area of attack, including all those spore crawlers. Really cool stuff right there. I was initially just worried he was kind of dropping the ball, But there was a plan, and it was executed about like, what, like 70% effectiveness or something like that. And there's another little no parasites. I actually grabbed that last battlecruiser. A very expensive loss for Nathanias, who is now building 5 battlecruisers at a time. So they will be replaced. But that kind of 150 hump we see right here for Nathanias, that's usually where, you know, a lot of races still feel a little bit uncomfortable. Protoss, Mech Terran, Zerg's maybe a little bit different, but the point is, like, once you get past that, you have a decent amount of stack defense, then you're back to feeling like, you know what, he's probably gonna have a tough time cracking me. He's probably, especially in this match, gonna have to remax on something before he actually cracks me. And while Lamb and Rice has a very good mineral bank, that gas is a huge problem. Lots of infestors have been killed in the making of this TVZ alongside those battlecruisers. You can actually take a look at the resources lost. Not a lot of SCVs at all, but 10 battlecruisers, yikes, that is a big loss. But thankfully, also 10 Nidas, 1,000 gas right there, and 15 infestors have gone down. So while infestors are cheaper than battlecruisers, they still are very expensive on that gas, which, you know, unless you've really taken the entire map and been very mindful of taking those gases first, it's just never gonna be greater than your mineral bank, right? Unless you're just making links constantly. So it's very, very tough to get that perfect composition and then to remax on that perfect composition for both of these players. A little easier on the remax potential because of the larva mechanic, but, you know, they're still going to be capped out on gas as we get into, I mean, we very swiftly went into the super late game of this matchup. We have Corvid Reactor now on the way. Of course, all tech labs on these starports, making an easy transition over to Ravens should you decide to add them into your army. They're almost never bad to add. Their anti-armor doesn't do the damage anymore. Can't take out huge masses of Corruptor or something like that, like maybe like a year and a half ago, something along those lines. But they still do take away armor. And that is, I mean, we're currently, usually the battle between battlecruisers and corruptors is literally like, well, we both have high armor, so like, who lasts the longest? But then, of course, you usually have extra spellcasters. For the Zerg, infestors, fungal, neuroparasite, infested Terrans, all fantastic things against air. But then you also have Vipers and their parasitic bomb, which alone does a laughable amount of damage, I guess, to battlecruisers with their humongous health pool. But after, you know, couple and just the combination of everything else, can be quite effective. Not to mention ducks to try and actually just pick off these units if you can. Kind of difficult to do, though. So I've learned recently, I haven't faced many more mech users. Lots of Natos coming down here. I mean, unless, yeah, okay, unless there was an actual battle on the way and the infestors were coming. No reason not to use that Yamato and just recharge it for later. Battlecruisers don't teleport back home to safety. They teleport to the other side of the map to get a hatchery. And even a little bit of a mule drop right there, I guess, to maybe stop a drone trying to hit it, or just for the style points, or maybe it was supposed to be a scan. I'm not actually sure about that. He does have extra orbitals, so it's not too good of a loss to do that. 6 orbitals with still 2 planetaries, so, and he's full on SCVs, so it's non-stop scans or a mule bomb if he needs it on a new base. And the battlecruiser does lose its life. This battlecruiser looking awfully bold. He's getting neuroparasite. They didn't have teleport anyways to escape. But just to make sure it doesn't snipe any infestors on the way. That's a pretty good option. So Lamb and Rice, back to that creep spread, could start trying to draw a line in the sand in some parts of the map. But the problem with battlecruisers is that they don't just stay in one place. They don't just go through the most obvious locations. They're not, you know, constrained to the ground paths, of course, being air. You might be able to build, you know, a dozen spore crawlers here, but then the fight's actually over here, or responding to one as it kills your hatch or something like that. I still think that it is worth it, especially since you're going to start banking minerals anyways, and the bigger your bank, the more options there are to reduce your drone counts on purpose, right, to get a bigger army. And that's also where spore crawler lines can be very, very good. But sometimes it seems like it's just not a good, like, it's not worth it, right? So we're not going to see that here from Lamb and Rice. He has been using Swarm Host for a little while. Kind of forgot to mention that, but mostly because I didn't think it would do very much. Swarm Host, you know, the free units is not totally inaccurate. I know some people are getting a little upset with the, you know, the free isn't exactly free, but yeah, they are. They, you know, if you aren't being attacked, if there's nothing to be afraid of when the locusts are released, then, you know, more power to the freedom there. To the freedom there. So this is brutal. Remember I mentioned earlier on they're going to do run-bys on hatcheries and going to start taking down not just hatcheries and drones, but also tech? Well, that's happening right now. Spire was the first thing to go down. Now we have the infestation pit potentially targeted. Nope, not quite. This was with a teleport, though. Remember that. And every time Nathanias does a teleport like this, he does increase his chances of getting his battlecruiser sniped by a bunch of neuroparasites, but he's trying to leave before the infestor shark around. And they're just a little bit slower with that burrow. Speaking of burrow, Lamb and Rice trying to save his drones with the burrow. Does manage to save a decent chunk of them at that 4th base and barely avoids the neural parasites. Barely avoids the neural parasites. All these battlecruisers up to the top right also live. It looks like just a couple of them a little low. More teleports coming in here is definitely bold. I'm very surprised by that. They're almost like distraction battlecruisers to save the big crew, but they seem like they're already pretty safe to me. I'm not exactly sure what that was. More battlecruisers are still being made, however. Nathanias is close to maxed out with those full upgrades. He even started to invest into the attack upgrade of basically no unit that he has right now. He has 66 SCVs, 4 Marines, and 16 battlecruisers. You know what that +1 vehicle weapons does? Absolutely nothing. Yeah. But he's got it in case he ever wants to build a couple extra tanks. Unless he ever wants to build Thors, which can be another good option if you are starting to fall behind in that like gigantic air war that can happen. If you're up against something but corruptors and infestors and vipers, and you don't have the missile turrets on the ground to support you, and sometimes that pure number and especially the remax potential of a Zerg player can be your downfall. And Thors are an excellent addition to make if that is something you're worried about, not just for the straight up damage to the corruptors, but also their ability to, like if you get, what, 3 or 4 Thors, like they just start one-shotting those Vipers before they can even do anything. It can be a little brutal. But that's a maybe, you know, and he's still bothering to go into it because he has a gas bank and a mineral bank. Now, Lamb and Rice also has a gas bank and mineral bank, and it's a big one. But when you're up against someone that you know can take astounding trades, you don't really, you're not in a hurry to use it. And then you find yourself in a bit of a paradox, you know, like you don't want to use your bank. You want it to be even bigger, but as you get bigger and better banks for the potential remax, they also get bigger and better static defense. So there's supposed to be these nice little, you know, I want to call them timings because they're not necessarily hitting exactly with +1 or at the exact time, but there's these moments that you're supposed to be able to find, and the more that you pressure a Terran, the more that you're pulling them apart, or any race actually, the more you have the ability to find these timings, right? That's what makes the pros so good. That's why pros rarely ever have those stupidly long games like we find maybe in like bronze or gold. It's just so hard to do though. Very difficult to do, especially for the Zerg player that doesn't have the scan ability, right? Can't just like see exactly what is waiting behind the battlecruiser army. Although we're getting awfully close to being able to do that with the creep spread. It is not being cleaned up. The Zimada's all being used in those corruptors. Quite brutal, and the teleport out right back to where they started, actually. Just taking units down and leaving this battlecruiser in the main base, continue to do more damage. We did have Lamb and Rice notably use his Overlord creep spread drop to actually save some of these structures, but doesn't really help save them from a battlecruiser. But just one battlecruiser doesn't take down things too fast, even with the full upgrades. And then looks like an infestor was waiting to help out, but maybe on hotkeyed. Still in full energy, a little weird. Hatchet to the top right has gone down. Both of them now very close in that bank. It looks like Lamb and Rice has been slowly rebuilding that hive since I guess he lost the spawning pool, the infestation pit, and the hive. So he had to literally like hatchery, spawning pool, lair, infestation pit, hive. That makes sense. It would take a very long time. He did apparently immediately rebuild the spire, so he's still going for the upgrades. No attempt to even turn it into a greater spire, since I guess he doesn't need broodlords. Sometimes if there are tanks on the ground or floors on the ground, sometimes broodlords can be helpful. And actually, you know, there will be a time here where Lamb and Rice is like, well, you know, maybe I could crack the missile turrets, or sorry, the battlecruisers, but can I crack the missile turrets in the planetary? And that's also where broodlords sometimes look like they're still a necessity, even though it seems to be all about the battlecruisers. So more battlecruisers doing harassment. Not gonna get these buildings, it looks like. Lots of Terrans coming down, but as he loses control. Okay, just barely gonna be able to get that one, but they are slow, especially off creep. And that one battlecruiser was still alive. Also getting some scouting done, getting some distraction done. Every time that Nathanias does this, it takes away from the potential big collapse that could be set up that Nathanias doesn't know about. There could be all the army here ready to try and move in, and he actually wouldn't know that. But if there's a battlecruiser on the main base, especially at nothing but, like, you know, Serral levels, right? The chances of them being distracted by that and also doing a lot of attacking is pretty low. And then on top of that, if they do try and do both attack and defend, they're going to slip up. There's going to be problems. And that's what makes the pros so impressive when they get to this point. You know, it might seem like lulls infester, lull infester, but there's actually a lot more to it. Battlecruiser is absolutely wrecking these corruptors, and don't forget that the corruptors were stopped short of getting really good upgrades because of that spire snipe, so they didn't even have attack upgrades. So many corruptors going down, good lord. 26 being remade, however, and that is actually everything on Lamb and Rice's production tab. So half of the battlecruisers went to the 5th base, half of them went to the natural, where there are a couple of infestors, but a scanner reveals them easy snipes here before the battlecruisers can actually take a ton of damage to each other, I guess. They were taking damage from the spore crawlers, but fully maxed out in those upgrades. They just kind of walked casually by, grabbing more infestors on the way through. Another base goes down to the top, bottom left. A couple of corruptors getting very low as well. It looks like Nathanias is on the chase. He sees the desperation in the Zerg player, but Lamb and Rice is not done remaxing. Maybe had to wait for a larva pop even this late in the game, perhaps. 20-something infestors, corruptors, and now 16 infestors. The battlecruisers are getting awfully low from just going over a bunch of spore crawlers, and the corruptors are finally starting to chip through here, slowly but surely. They don't have the armadas anymore either, so they are just a little less potent. And there we go, finally actually digging into the battlecruiser count. Infestors pop out as well, going to be burrowed to save their lives, and they're looking for the neurals, more so on these battlecruisers, which do take out yet another hatchery. The drones have sometimes been saved, sometimes not, so we're still at a okay count of 47, but Lamb and Rice has been thrown down to 2 mining bases. This one actually still has a bit of mining to go for, but I understand why you wouldn't go back to it. So let's just say 2 mining bases and need to get those hatcheries back up. The good news is the minerals aren't really what gets depleted super fast. Again, you're not remaxing on lings. So Lamb and Rice has the ability to remake those hatcheries, but he also has to worry about his larva remax. Even if he had a big gas bank again here, it's still maybe a problem of larva. And he also has to worry about just getting that drone count up and running. You know, you also have to get your bases up, gotta get your extractors back up, things like that. The hive also went down in that little blitz move there. I believe it was at the 3rd base. So once again, restarting that technology from scratch. At least the spire survived. And I guess the infestation pit was used, yeah, right before it died. So we were down to just, wow. 4 types of structures, if you don't include creep tumors. Good lord. It's not a very impressive count right there. And Nathanias is still calmly making his battlecruisers. Now, what I'm a little worried about for Nathanias, as he takes good trades here, is that he's not really expanding a whole ton. He got to his 4, 5 bases actually relatively quickly, a little bit slower to that 6th, and then it's kind of just stopped. And that could be a problem. It's one of those things that you're like, I shouldn't be worried right now, and you shouldn't be. But if you had the opportunity, you probably should be trying to get other bases. And, you know, believe it or not, with that creep spread being so lackluster in the early game, it has actually reached to all these corner bases. And even this one, which Nathanias is thinking about getting next. This one being a half base, half minerals, half gas, but still useful, especially as a defense point. You know, usually attacks do happen around this little zone. Battlecruisers found the corruptors, or vice versa. Corruptors also see the SCVs if the creep already didn't, right? Actually mining out the remaining minerals. Nathanias really trying to think about the long game here as he mines out his opponent's minerals. And by keeping his opponent's fresh hatcheries dead, it means that Lamb and Rice is constantly going forward, going closer to his opponent to actually try and get those bases and get that economy. No pairs with RUs effectively here. Corruptors are taking out those battlecruisers, but battlecruisers over to the top right. Gonna be missing those 2 active creep tumors, which is a huge bummer. They will block that command center, which Nathanias clearly wants to get. Lamb and Rice being torn left and right, but Nathanias a little bit scared. Didn't actually know exactly where the army was. Figured it'd be coming soon. Even having scans, decides to not go for the snipe on this base, which is getting increasingly low in that potential income. Gas count still pretty solid, but the minerals have been pretty depleted. And Rice really needs to get more bases up. The bank is okay. It's not so good in the gas, however. And I'm sure Lamb and Rice is not feeling so good about that sub 130 supply. But does get a grab on that command center. It's a start. It's a start. That's a Terran's being used, trying to take out the stag defense, because that's really all the ground attack that he has. Yamato's go off, but don't actually kill that many Corruptors. No, Parasites go off instead. Teleports are used to expend it, and these Corruptors are going to be able to get the final attacks, the final blows on the Battlecruiser. A little late to it, though. They're letting the No Parasites wear off, which always threatens the Infestors specifically, which is exactly what Battlecruisers, when Nathanias is trying to do with those Battlecruisers. So he's going to miss the opportunity, but, well, he still has a lot of Battlecruisers. But that was exactly what Lamb and Rice needed. He finally got the Wombo combo. I mean, if there's a Wombo combo Jumbo, he didn't get that. He didn't get the Infested Terrans underneath all those Battlecruisers instantly firing them down. But he got the Wombo combo of the Corruptors being in the right place and the Infestors getting the correct neural parasites off. Not the ones that were being Amatoed, but just the ones that actually were able to actually keep the Battlecruisers under their control so that the Corruptors can get the final hits. Muling despite, you know, being the Zerg army being there, because what are you gonna do? Use Infested? Vegetarians? Yeah, okay, fine. It's energy for energy, literally, at this point, right? The mules are not SCVs, they don't have to be replaced, not 50 mules or pop, it's just energy. Logger's still alive, wow. No run-bys for you. Not that he really upgraded into them. That's a 3-3 melee. That could have been for Broodlords a long time ago. Maybe the thought of Broodlords, but not here. But didn't bother getting adrenal glands, so... Sometimes that can be a useful just mineral dump, right? It can buy you a little bit of time when Battlecruisers have to go all the way back home into the main base as Lings fled through. And Lings can even, with Adrenal Gland 3-3, can tear down starports, but Lemon Rice hasn't really done that. Never had the opportunity to either, despite having a larger mineral bank. That's what you're supposed to have. That's the safety right there. You know, you don't have to use every single mineral when you're in this type of game. Hatch rate does go down. Battlecruisers are teleported out, though, except the one. So that's a decent trade there for Nathanias. Nathanias is still recovering from the battle over here, though. That's when his supply really plummeted. You know, every time we see Nathanias up at 200 supply with a fleet of Battlecruisers, it's scary. Keep in mind that Battlecruisers, being that tier 3 unit, do have that higher supply, so, like, you know, when 6 Marines die, who the hell cares? When 6 Battlecruisers die, you suddenly see that reflected in your supply pretty quickly. Hellions are available. I don't know when they were made, but they were being made. Maybe when he saw the Lings, maybe he thought, okay, this is the point where the Zerg's getting a little bit desperate. That's a good thing, because the Lings were trying to get through here. Not much for them to kill. The main base isn't open to them, though. The Hellions do take care of it with the help of the Battlecruisers. Lamb and Rice now taking a base that he has not tried to take previously in 32 minutes of this game. So maybe Nathanias won't find it. He's been teleporting for the last, what, 20 minutes down to these bases. So it's like, maybe that base won't be found. This one seems to, okay, yeah, I mean, he should take it, but it has been killed like 5 or 6 times. Hellions are now a threat as they have been rebuilt. Infestors, they could fungal with Infested Terrans, but that will take quite a bit of energy. And they might not get the perfect fungals, which Nathanias actually splits against. He's gonna go for the drones. He could try and go for an Infestor, but Infestors, I don't believe they're light, so they don't actually die that quickly to Hellions. Despite, like, they look fragile, right? They're big, like, ticks, like you poke them and they pop, but not so much with Hellions. In this type of game, I guess, makes sense that Nathanias wouldn't bother with Blue Flame Hellions. Just straight for the upgrades on the Battlecruisers. Getting this energy upgrade, though. I thought he would add 1 or 2 Ravens. But never did. And now he's got a very low gas bank. You know, that... Remember how, like, 8 minutes ago I mentioned that the lack of expansions from Nathanias could be a problem? Well, now it's a problem. It took him a very long time to get this base cleared. He never took care of this creep spread over here, so it's now even farther than the mineral base. And despite clearing this middle, he didn't actually take it. I mean, it's 1 gas, so it's half as effective, but still, it's a lot of gas you could be mining. Potentially thinking that he had won the game after XYZ battle, but then this one went a little too poorly over here, and he didn't expect that to happen. or just doing too many things at once, so expanding was kind of the last thing on his mind. Battlecruiser is barely saved, is looking for the main base, but there's nothing here. There is 100 gas, though. Okay, if this comes down to that much gas, I'm gonna put this one in the Hall of Fame. Supply depots had burned down from the last thing run by, so the structures suddenly are a little weak. One battlecruiser teleports home. They're not terrible at cleaning up lings. Okay, well, okay, all of them teleport home. I think that way they just had sniped a building hatchery. But if it's just one, maybe it could have taken a while. You could easily run away from it. But attempted a burrow, scans, easy peasy, and the start would have been a little bit in vision as well. I thought the mules were going to repair that battlecruiser, and I think that was their purpose. And then Nathanias got distracted. Oh well. Oh well. Finally taking this base. He desperately needs it. You know, this isn't just him waiting for more gas because his first 3 bases have been mined out. No, like all of his bases have been mined out of the gas, right? The most important thing here. He is also going to start running low on minerals, which means that further bases could be difficult to defend with missile turrets. But speaking of which, they are using their shots now for the corruptors. So, but who cares about that? Like 6 infestors, something like that. 4 to 6 infestors just lost their lives on that A move to the top right. Big loss right there, because guess who else doesn't have a lot of gas bank? Yeah, the Zerg. The Zerg does not have much of any bank, actually, so no additional spore crawlers will be made here, not they ever were. This middle base has been depleted of its gas, and still no bases down here. The Helens found this one. It's going to be a continued target for the rest of the game. Maybe try and take this one and really surprise and razzle-dazzle, but Nathanias is trying to keep tabs on his opponent's bases at the same time trying to desperately get his new one up and running, but it seems to be successful. He grabbed infestors over here. The corruptors were getting damaged, even though I think most of them did retreat. That just is another line in the sand that you now no longer are just dealing with battlecruisers. If you're going for battlecruisers and you're just building battlecruisers and planetaries and not missile turrets, you're foolish, okay? You're a fool. Definitely build battlecruisers, definitely build those extra planetaries, and if you really think you need it, maybe even like one extra planetary in here can do wonders. It's so annoying to have to also worry about that extra thing. In this case, especially for the infestors, but in other games for your hydras or for your, well, yeah, basically for hydras. I was gonna say like ultras, but you don't really build ultras against mech, so the point is, all right, they're annoying, and they've been fully upgraded for like 20 minutes at this point. So they're extra annoying. Oh, I did not notice the rise in queen count from minute 6 of having a shockingly low number of queens for a Zerg player to minute 37, having a very high number of queens. Now, with the lack of Vipers, you know, just the one spellcaster here, the control groups from Lamb and Rice are probably easy enough that he could include these queens. Just something to consider, that when you see, like, you know, when you see corruptors, vipers, infestors, maybe hydras, maybe lings, and then on top of that, queens as well, maybe even broodlords, right? There's a lot of things you have to micro. And when it's more down to the basics here, the one thing you can certainly say about the potential lack of complexity, like maybe that's the downside. The upside is that it might get a little bit easier to actually pop off these transfuses, or pop off the infestors, or correctly shift click on top of the battlecruisers so that the corruptors are shooting them all at once, instead of all spread out like. So these queens could be a big deal. It will also be okay at transfusing the infestors, which again they're not the most fragile units, but they're certainly fragile. And autos go off, and the teleport is good. Lane's running now to what is a mostly depleted planetary and lose their lives. They felt quite lame. Lamb and Rice has finally gotten this base back up, and Nathanias has been a little shy about getting a battlecruiser down there. The army was sharking around, so it's probably better, but he does have that option in the future. I mean, he's got to be a lot more shy about how he uses these, because he has been struggling to build them. The reason that we've been seeing a lot more Hellions wasn't just the potential reaction of like, oh, well, he's building Lings, I should probably build these safety Hellions. And so, well, that's the only thing he can put his mineral bank into. And they are still something. Something's better than nothing. If they get one infestor, great. If they get 20 drones, fantastic. If they kill larva, hey, that could even be a big deal. And they're also trying to keep tabs on just the bases going up in general. So the battlecruisers now coming through here, saying, okay, we got this, guys. Go on to the next base. And it's exactly what they do. Nathanias probably doesn't want to invest in that blue flame at this point because it would just be too much gas. Such a gas-starved game. But the Hellions, as they are, I still think are a very good addition. They will not be getting any infestors anytime soon, but there's always that chance. This base is going to be mined out very, very quickly if he's using mules, but it looks like he's not. So we're still at 6 orbitals, but I think they are just being used to save for scans. Makes sense, makes sense. There's no hurry, really, to get more minerals from Nathanias. In fact, the hurry for using the mules would be to do exactly this. To mine out his opponent's base. Again, most of the emphasis here is on gas, and they can't mine from an opponent's gas extractor, assimilator, whatever. But there's, again, the chance that, like, the lack of Ling Flood or the spore crawlers that could have gone down don't go down, and that is very important. Which, actually, speaking of spore crawlers, yeah, I wanted to check if this had still out of spore crawler force, and it actually does. Okay. Those could be moved. I mean, you know, they move to the base for 5 battlecruisers to float on through. They die. They probably don't kill a battlecruiser. But if they stop, like, 2 battlecruiser harassment or 1 battlecruiser harassment, they're already more effective than just chilling here, right? Oh, well. Battlecruisers did not teleport in, but they're also, there we go, a little slow to teleporting out. Looks like he was microing his Hellions as well, or something. And this time they teleport right into the army, so a bit of a mistake there. He was hoping to catch a Zerg by surprise, but instead it is the Zerg that catches him. Now parasites go down. How did that still kill the hatchery? Hold up. So I guess, interesting. Sorry, as someone who has been, you know, trying to do better in late game scenarios here, I'm gonna break the code of, gonna rewind on replays and just, like, triple check here. So, I never really thought about it. But I guess they continue shooting the same thing they've been shooting. No, I think he shift-clicked it on the Hellbats and then accidentally hit his own hatchery? Okay. What? Well, maybe I'm just being stupid. Maybe I'm too tunnel vision and you guys will tell me exactly what happened, but okay, that hatchery does go down. So that's, you know, I didn't just rewind for science, I also rewinded for, I guess, emphasis there, as that is one of the more important bases on the map here. The other one being this base, and this one, of course, which is finally getting up to mining. The speed, the urgency that he needs the gas, he has oversaturated them, but better than not getting them at all. Yamato's go off on the infestors. Get a couple. Teleport is going to try to be used, but only one is able to successfully escape. These battlecruisers over here are scouted by the overlords / kill the overlords, but overlord losses are not really the concern, as both of them struggling to get fully maxed out. Consistent trades as such expensive units has kept Nathanias below that maxed out point. We do have the option to go for smart servos, which is interesting. So that is what creates faster Hellion to Hellbat transformations, Thor transformations, and Viking transformations. It doesn't help battlecruisers whatsoever. So this is purely for the Hellions. I guess getting a little tired of them being so slow in their transform. Battlecruiser is finding more overlords, and now we do have a problem. Now we do. Supply block. Also because the swarm hosts have been added in, and swarm hosts are still very supply heavy, supply inefficient. I'm also not totally convinced they were the best option to include there. I'm guessing to help out against the Hellions? Question mark? Clearly that's a very odd option against the Hellions, but since they haven't moved forward to try and take out planetaries, that's why I'm wondering if that was his only option. Quick check on the tech structures. Oh, we could have made roaches. I mean, just, you know, I'm thinking because if they pop all their locusts at once accidentally, then you're still sitting there waiting to do something about the Hellions, or at least roaches would be consistent. But on the other hand, why waste minerals and gas on roaches as cheap as they are when swarm hosts will eventually, hopefully, be able to attack into some of these missile turrets and command centers, which we finally have the movement forward here, queens included. This is the type of setup that you would want that stag defense as well, but not included. Stag defense not included in this game. Gonna buy those extra stag defenses. Gonna buy the extra 9-volt batteries. Hellions not being used to clean up creep spread is not so bad. Not so bad. Does miss one active creep skimmer though. Needs to make sure this base doesn't get taken by his opponent, otherwise that is nasty. Nathanias is really gonna need that one. His gas is down to sub 1,000. I mean, that's still a couple of battlecruisers for sure, but Nathanias still trying to use his mules whenever possible, whenever he has sight on his opponent's minerals. But Lamb and Rice has gone from trading out corruptor after corruptor after corruptor constantly, actually keeping most of his army alive and just dealing with all these Hellion run-bys, which fungals will damage. I mean, not a lot, but they do eventually kill the Hellbat. Come on. Okay. Mules alongside these Hellbats, taking out the last mineral patches at this 4th base. Queen's helping out a lot too. Please, please, please. There we go. 10 more Swarm Hosts as well. Now with a maxed out army here, Lamb and Rice, it's not the most efficiently maxed out army with the Swarm Hosts included, but because we're also on a low drone count, it actually still is a very scary army. These locusts will, like, one locust wave of, oh, how many, 24 Swarm Hosts will kill a planetary. Doesn't matter if it's being repaired. Probably doesn't even matter if the battlecruisers come in, unless they're like maybe there from the get-go. They will kill buildings. And if it's not planetaries, then it's all the stag defense that's been bothering this poor Zerg. They just actually need to get on it. So far they're being used to defend against the Hellions, but actually Nathanias, very bold here, going for the attack. Yamato's on everything, all the corruptors it looks like. The infestors don't have a lot of energy, and maybe that was the trigger. Maybe he noticed they didn't have a lot of energy after all those fungals, but the infested Terrans still going forward here. The corruptors still getting a lot of shots off, and the Queen's transfusing like bosses, also adding in a tiny bit of DPS. A couple of battlecruisers go down, one last Yamato because he can. Was that actually a good idea? They both get depleted in that supply. One actually went down here. A handful of Swarm Hosts, more than a handful of Swarm Hosts, almost half the Swarm Hosts went down in that fight. Surprising. I don't think that was the target of the battlecruisers, but it inevitably just happens. Infestors, I think, well, in this entire game, I mean, 69 battlecruisers have gone down. 46 infestors. Whew. Yikes. But that has been, you know, from when we checked back, 20 minutes ago, it was actually 10 battlecruisers, 15 infestors, so we have had better infestor conservation since then. Also, those corruptors finally got at least one additional upgrade. They do not have +3, however. Gotta wonder. Would that have made a difference here, there, everywhere? I don't know. Queen's helping take care of the Hellions. Nathanias isn't quite done with those, though. He's still muling wherever he possibly can. So he still has 2,000 minerals, but this base is apparently not going to be saved for Nathanias. That's a big bummer. I think that's also another reason why he felt obligated to go for the attack. I shouldn't say that. I don't know if he felt obligated. He might have actually just been like, look, those infestors don't have a lot of energy. Let's do this. But it's always scary to be the one that pushes in. No matter what type of army you have, unless you're, obviously winning, of course. It's usually worse to be the attacker. The quick Hellbat transformation actually takes on the Queens a little bit, but only one went down because I guess she wasn't transfused. Ultimately not worth what was like 1,000 minerals right there. Saw an opportunity that wasn't actually an opportunity. Perhaps a distraction. Saw where the army was going to go in for this hatchery. Sport Claw is finally repositioned, but yeah, when it's the entire battlecruiser fleet, I mean, they kind of damage one battlecruiser a little paint scratch right there. But that is an important snipe. Lamb and Rice is down to... Actually, you know what? These are still pretty healthy. It took them so long to get these mining. They're still kind of healthy. I'm going to say, if this goes on for any longer, we're also going to start worrying about mineral banks. The replacing hatcheries could be a problem. Nathanias is almost mined out of this base. The gas is now down to sub 200 as I speak. Leaving him with, 400, 500, 900, what, like three more battlecruisers? It's scary. This is getting really scrappy, you guys. Foremost finally being used to go for the missile turrets, but the Hellions, I mean, this is the other thing that made them good. This is, I guess, why he finally invested into the blue flame as well, however long ago, was that they will be able to take out that locust wave a little bit quicker. More effective if they're protecting a planetary, for instance. Funnily enough, at this point in time, it is better for the orbitals we put down if taking bases was something we were actually talking about, but not so much. Nathanias can't get another base, even if he did have an orbital or a fresh command center to turn it into a planetary. But yeah, it's one of those games where maybe an orbital would be better. Battlecruiser is still just keeping over here. So this is kind of funny. We're going to actually have most of this game decided between these two places, right? This is the base that Lamb and Rice needs to get the Remax, to beat out Nathanias's, hopefully better trades. And this is also where Nathanias can retreat to over missile turrets for the Corruptors to not be as effective. Now, to say that, Swarm Hosts actually take out quite a few. These ones will burn down, and that is no longer the missile turret forest that could provide that safety. Nathanias doing something really dangerous, but no Overlords catch sight of this. So many Battlecruisers. Look how weird they look when they're turning. That's so funny. 17 Battlecruisers all on top of each other. Okay, deck of cards. Gonna go for the drones here. We're down to 30 drones, down to 21. Infestation Pit also being sniped. That leaves him with just the Spire. The hatchery does get sniped as well. Hellions going over to this side of the base. Might just try and go for the Spire here, and that's exactly what they go for. Transforming instantly, and then Mule dropping on the very few remaining minerals. The hatchery, well, the lair's gonna be fine, it looks like, but the Spire is not so much. Hellions even actually transform back into their speedy mode and try and skedaddle. Mules might die, but they didn't give Nathanias more minerals. They at least took away minerals of Lamb and Rice. Spore Crawler even going down here as, oh, there's actually something happening. That's why the distraction was going. That's why it wasn't microing, because the Battlecruisers were trying to tango with the Infestors, with the Corruptors. But actually, no, not the Corruptors. Wait, what are the Corruptors doing back here? They should be helping the Infestors. They actually got some neural parasites, but not with enough support to really work out. So the Battlecruisers lived through that, still at 16, and this, oh, the Hellions all being joined up could get a couple of those extra damage, extra shots on the Infestors to actually kill them. Hatchery goes down once again. This one's still rebuilding. Finally, the full might of the Zerg army, all that energy comes forward, but oh, especially the Corruptors. There was absolutely no reason for them to be back there, but that must just be how the hotkeys were lined up for Lamb and Rice. I guess he has his hotkeys with the Queens, Corruptors, Roaches, the anti-Hellion squad, perhaps. But oof, big oof. Oh, the Hellion run by, potentially causing even more damage than it really looked like, but I don't know, 14 Infestors. Battlecruisers were once again going for the sneaky sneak. They're going to be able to find 2 hatcheries if they dedicate over here. They could use teleport to go back home, but the teleport in front of the Zerg army, I just went over that. You don't really want to be the attacker. Best case scenarios, you're always in a defensive position, in a position that you decide how to engage, but over Spore Crawlers, with a concave, with your hotkeys all correctly identified, but sometimes it is also better just to be the blitzer that actually attack, and then you choose the engagement time if you don't necessarily choose the engagement process. There are no Spore Crawlers to actually fight over, though. There are no Spore Crawlers anymore. Hatcheries are all going down. Spawning pool once again goes down. Those SCVs are dying, I suppose. Like, oh my god, they got a Spore Crawler. But that isn't the real meat and potatoes of this game. It's about these Battlecruisers right here, right now. 2 more being made. That should be the last Battlecruiser, unless he can get more gas somewhere, anywhere. He could get this gas. And just long distance mine. But, oh boy. Battlecruisers actually purposely stuck down here on patrol. Let's get maybe a better idea as where the army is. Army reveals itself. Locusts going for the missile turrets are helpful in that regard, but now we have a lot of units here that are not helpful against the Battlecruisers. We have Roaches and we have Swarm Hosts, but as I speak about those Roaches, he turns them all into Ravagers with whatever gas he has left over. That's a decent amount of gas, so down to just 83, a little bit here and there. Mining, supply block incoming, hatchery goes down, overlords go down. Another hatchery could fall here. That's every single hatchery. No, actually, this one finally got up, so that's a little bit of mining, but only with 9 workers. How helpful is it really? The Ravagers are combined with the Fungal, but potentially help against stacked up battlecruisers, and that's exactly what Lamb and Rice is hoping for. Maybe an amazing fungal will change things around with the corrosive bile. I think it's one amazing fungal, or well, repeated amazing fungals to actually get corrosive biles, and let's say like 4 battlecruisers stacked up. They do an insane amount of damage. They're magic based, right? So they don't care about the high armor of a battlecruiser. They just want to do the damage as fast as possible and actually pierce through that hide. One investor did go down there. More overlords are being made, but you know why? 500 minerals putting to 5 overlords, but it doesn't help him that much. Extractor is being built as Lamb and Rice realizes those were some of his only buildings. Creep tumors do not count when you come down to a base race. It might be on the buildings tab, it doesn't matter. 1 spore crawler, 1 extractor, and 1 hatchery. An attempted fungal is missed. Thank goodness for Nathanias, still at that solid count of 19 battlecruisers. Actually, he went for the hatchery, and the extractor, but there's still a spore crawler somewhere. Oh my god, he's gonna lose a lot of battlecruisers for that. The fungal is so good right here. The teleport, of course, already being used to even get to this point. Of course, the battle's not looking too helpful, but the corruptors and the queens are doing it, especially with their transfusers. So many battlecruisers just went down there. The last one here, I believe that was like 7 battlecruisers that died. Missile turrets being one of the last safe havens, kind of, but not even really. Swarm hosts coming in for the last hurrah, trying to take those out so the corruptors can do their job. But actually, the corruptor number is getting a little bit thin, perhaps. Down to 9. Oh my god, wait, no! No, wait! Oh, he teleported! He teleported! The last extractor, that's what it was. That was the last building. Where were the teleports? I guess they were just, oh my god, I just figured they were being used to retreat, but no, he was actually going after the last building, which was revealed not but like 10 seconds ago. Oh, if he had not killed that last base, I'm not sure that he wins that fight. He had no more missile turrets to go over, at least on the left side there. And the Queen infested Terrans, everything was collapsing in on him. What a super, super close game. Jeez Louise. Really cool, really cool. Awesome snipe on that extractor. Nathanias does get his ladder points here. His MMR gets spiked up. And he feels super good about himself, and he flexes on his camera, because it's usually what he does after a solid win. Alright, that does it for this YouTube video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I certainly did. It was fun. It was a little passive here and there, but overall, had a lot of interesting things to talk about. If you like Nathanias' playstyle, make sure to check him out on twitch.tv/Nathanias. Pretty sure that's the basic name right there is used for his URL. And if not, you can always Google him and figure everything else by yourself. And then if you like this content, please make sure to, you know, like, subscribe, comment, all that, you know, stereotypical stuff. And I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.